Homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. The question that's been asked is, do you have any information taken from the suttas about the Nāga Loka? So this is the realm of the Nāgas. The question that comes to my mind is they are supposed to have a lot of faith in Buddha and Dhamma, but they cannot listen to Dhamma from their world, as it's not accessible. Is this stated in the suttas? So we can certainly answer this question from the suttas, and we'll also take the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the Nāgas. Let's begin by looking at the background and description of the Nāgas and their realm from the suttas. We learn that the great king Virupakkha, who is one of the 4 great kings of the Chaturmaharajika Deva realm, he is the master or controller of the Nāgas in the western direction. We also learn that there are 4 royal Naga families, Virupakkha, Erakapatta, Chabhyaputta, and Kanha. And when we go to the Mahāsamaya Sutta in the Digha Nikaya, there's a great gathering of celestial beings, and the Nagas are also in attendance for that great gathering. And in terms of different Naga kings, we hear names like Chanda, Datarata, Varuna, Sankapala, Mucalinda, and Erakapatta. Now, there was also this great battle between Asuras and Devas, and the Asuras were cast out of the Tavatimsa realm by Sakka and the Devas when they defeated them. And to prevent them from coming back, Sakka had guards set in 5 different places. The Nagas were one of those guards. Now, what we learn about the Nagas is that they're great in strength, they're gifted with miraculous powers, they're invincible with poisonous breath, and with an angry bite that can kill. One other thing that we learn is that they're easily displeased for even the smallest little thing, and their angry glance can also be quite deadly. And in some of the Jataka stories, they are said to emit smoke and fire. We also learn that they're known for their hooded serpent-like bodies. Sometimes they're also, instead of serpent, they're referred to as dragons. So you might see that referred to in some of the translations. They have a mastery over shape-shifting. So when it comes to shifting to human form or back to divine form, and they can shed their skin as well. So it's also said that they can mate with humans, but their offspring, in one of the Jataka stories, it says that they're watery in nature and can be quite delicate. They generally live within the great ocean or under the river, and certain names of rivers have been given in the suttas. They're also around lakes, and it's really that waters serve as the gateway to their realms. Those are the water-based Nagas. There's also Nagas that are land-based, and some of the references are made to the foot of the Himalayas, but you get the sense that it's below ground. Their enemies are these mythical birds called Garulas, and these Garulas can carry them off by force, so they can pick them up and fly off. In different Jataka stories, we also hear accounts of the great beauty of the Naga kingdoms. So you hear references to golden cities, bejeweled watchtowers, palaces built of marble and rich with gold, covered with jewels inlaid with gold, and then abundant fruit groves and flowering trees with blossoms that never fade, choice foods, divine scents, flocks of assorted birds, ponds, lakes, lovely maidens, and more. We also learned that although the Naga birth can be refined and pleasant, it's still classed within the animal realm. A frog-eating existence is one reference that's been made to it. There's also this peerless jewel of the Nagas, which is quite renowned, and it's renowned for its beauty, magnificence, and the power of granting all wishes to its possessor, and it's considered a jewel worthy of a universal emperor. There's also accounts in the Jatakas of people making offerings to the Nagas, a sacrifice of milk, rice, fish, meat, and strong drink, and things like that. So we learned that they are carnivorous. In the Baka Jataka, it seemed as if one of the Nagas wanted to devour one of the humans, but the humans were saved. They're based upon the Himalayas, and the Nagas apparently nurture their bodies and acquire strength. And from there, they are able to enter pools, then lakes, then streams, then rivers, and then they finally enter the ocean. And so there they can expand their bodies and achieve a lot of greatness. So in terms of reproduction or rebirth, they are produced in 4 ways. They are either born from an egg, from a womb, from moisture, or spontaneously. So what's said in the suttas, this is particularly Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 29, discourse number 2. In fact, chapter 29 is all about the Nagas, or the collected teachings on the Nagas. It's said that the Nagas born from a womb, from moisture or spontaneously, are better than those born from an egg. And then those born from moisture and spontaneously are better than those born from an egg and from a womb. And the Nagas born spontaneously are better than those born from an egg, from a womb, and then from moisture. Now, what's really interesting is that the Nagas have also been known to observe the Uposatha. So we're going to look at this in one of the suttas. In previous births, we learned that the Buddha, as the bodhisatta, has been born a few times as a Naga king. So one example is Sankapala. And we also learned that there are past births for some of the disciples of the Buddha. So one of the examples is Sariputta. He was Varuna, the Naga king. One of the most famous of the Naga kings is Mucalinda, and we see reference to him after the Buddha's enlightenment. And if we go to the Mucalinda Sutta, Udana 2.1, the Discourse says, "Thus I heard, at one time the Blessed One was dwelling near Uruvela, on the bank of the river Neranjara, at the root of the Mucalinda tree in the first period after attaining awakening. Then at that time the Blessed One was sitting in one cross-legged posture for 7 days, experiencing the happiness of freedom. Then at the time a great cloud arose out of season, bringing 7 days of raining weather, cold winds and overcast days. Then the Naga king Mucalinda, after living his domicile and surrounding the Blessed One's body 7 times with his coils, stood with his great hood stretched out above his head, thinking, 'May the Blessed One not be cold, may the Blessed One not be hot, may the Blessed One not be affected by gadflies, mosquitoes, wind, and the heat of the sun, and the serpents.' Then with the passing of those 7 days, the Blessed One arose from that concentration. Then the Naga king Mucalinda, having understood that the sky was now clear without a cloud, having unravelled his coils from the Blessed One's body, and after withdrawing his own form and creating the appearance of a young Brahmana, stood in front of the Gracious One, revering the Blessed One with raised hands." So it's a very inspiring passage, because Mucalinda has done such a noble offering and would have gained much merit from that. Also, the way that you can see he could change his form very quickly. He could shapeshift immediately from his serpent-like, dragon-like form into one of a young Brahmana in order to pay respects to the Buddha. So this is only 7 days after the Buddha's enlightenment, and Mucalinda came from, I guess, his Naga realm, his grand palace or whatever he was living in, and came to be of service to the Buddha. So we can rejoice that. The story of Erakapatta, the Naga king, is a very good one. It actually helps us to answer the question that's been asked. And in a previous existence, during the time of Kassapa Buddha, he was a bhikkhu for a very long time. But he had this worry over a very minor offense that he committed, and so he was reborn as a Naga. And he was waiting for the reappearance of a Buddha. And he had a very beautiful daughter, and what he would do was twice a month he would send her out to dance in the open and sing out certain questions. And many suitors came to answer the questions, and no one could really give the correct answer. So Erakapatta knew that when those questions could be answered correctly, then he would know that a Buddha had come. So one day the Buddha saw a youth named Uttara in his vision. He knew that the youth would attain stream entry in connection with the questions that were put forth by Erakapatta's daughter. And he was on his way to see the daughter. But the Buddha stopped him and taught him how to answer the questions. And while he was being taught, Uttara attained Sotapanna. So Uttara, having attained Sotapanna, he no longer had the desire to go and visit the Naga princess. But Uttara still went anyway for the benefit of other beings. And the questions that were asked is, who is a ruler? The second was, is one who is overwhelmed by a mist of moral defilements to be called a ruler? And the third question was, what ruler is free from moral defilements? And the fourth question was, what sort of person is to be called a fool? And so he correctly answered the questions by saying, he who controls the six senses is a ruler. One who is overwhelmed by the mist of moral defilements is not to be called a ruler. He who is free from craving is called a ruler. And then in answer to the third question, he said, the ruler who is free from craving is free from moral defilements. And then the last one is, the person to be called a fool is the one who hankers after sensual pleasures. So Erakapatta then realized that, having heard the answers, that a Buddha had appeared in the world. So he asked Uttara to take him to the Buddha. Then on seeing the Buddha, Erakapatta related to the Buddha that he had been a bhikkhu during the time of Kassapa Buddha, and how he had accidentally caused a grass blade to be broken off while traveling in a boat, and how he had been worried over that little offense for having failed to do the act of exoneration as prescribed, and then how he was finally reborn as a Naga. After hearing him, the Buddha told him how difficult it was to be born in the human world, and to be born during the appearance of the Buddha, and during the time of their teaching. And so he said the verse, difficult it is to gain a human birth, difficult is the life of mortals, difficult is the chance to hear true Dhamma, difficult is the rising of the Buddhas. And what we learn from this account is that Erakapatta was very sorrowful because he knew that from what the Buddha preached, that as a Naga, he would not be able to attain any fruits of the path because he still had animal nature, animal form, and it was not possible for him to enter the stream. In the case of Erakapatta, it's quite clear that one can leave the realm in order to listen to Dhamma. However, what is clear is that they're unable to make spiritual progress. And this becomes more clear when we listen to the Buddha's words. Now, in the Vinaya, there's a section called Mahākandaka, and there's a particular section that talks about the Nagas. And what it says is, at one time there was a Naga who was troubled, ashamed, and disgusted with his existence as a Naga. He thought, how can I get released from this existence and quickly become a human? It occurred to him, these Sakyan monastics have integrity, they're celibate, and their conduct is good, and they're truthful, moral, and have good character. If I were to go forth with them, I would be released from this existence as a Naga and quickly become human. Then, taking on the appearance of a young Brahmin, the Naga went to the monks and asked for the going forth. The monks gave him the going forth and the full ordination. Soon afterwards, the Naga was sharing a remote dwelling with a certain monk. After getting up early one morning, the monk did walking meditation outside. When the monk had left, the Naga relaxed and fell asleep. As a result, the Naga filled the whole dwelling, its coils even protruding from the windows. Just then, the monk decided to go back inside. When he opened the door, he saw the Naga filling the whole dwelling. Terrified, he screamed. Monks came running to and asked him why he was screaming, and he told them what he had seen. The Naga woke up from the noise and sat down on his seat. The monks asked him who he was. He replied, I'm a Naga. And then the monks asked, why did you do this? And the Naga told them what had happened. They told the Buddha. He then had the Sangha of monks gathered and said to the Naga, Nagas are unable to make progress on this spiritual path. Go, Naga, and keep the observance days on the 14th, the 15th, and the 8th of the lunar half month. In this way you'll be released from existence as a Naga and quickly become human. When he heard this, the Naga wept. Sad and miserable, he cried out in distress and left. And the Buddha addressed the monks. There are two occasions when Nagas appear in their own form, when they have sexual intercourse with each other, and when they relax and fall asleep. Monks, an animal should not be given the full ordination. If it has been given, it should be expelled. And so we learn a little more from the Buddha that, well, two things. We learn that Nagas, when they have sexual intercourse with each other, they appear in their own form, and same when they relax and fall asleep. So clearly what the Buddha is saying is that an animal cannot be given full ordination, and also they're unable to make progress on the spiritual path because they are animals. So they're encouraged to be reborn as humans. And therefore we find suttas in the connected discourses on Nāgas. This is chapter 29 of the Samyutta Nikaya. You find Nāgas who observe the Uposatha. When the question was asked of the Buddha, what is the cause and reason for Nāgas to observe the Uposatha and relinquish concern for their body? The Buddha says, some Nāgas think, in the past we've acted ambivalently in body, speech and mind. Having done so with the breakup of the body after death, we were reborn in the company of the Nāgas. If today we practice good conduct of body, speech and mind, then with the breakup of the body after death, we shall be reborn in a happy destination in a heavenly realm. So let's practice good conduct of body, speech and mind. And so that's the reason. Now, when it says that they relinquish concern for their bodies, you read in the Jatakas where even as the bodhisatta was one of the Naga kings, rather than kill when they were observing the Uposatha, they allowed themselves to be harmed, they allowed themselves to be trapped, and they also allowed themselves to be killed. And so even at the cost of being attacked or eaten or killed by another creature or a human, they resolved to uphold the precepts. In the Kanda Jataka, we learn about the benefit of developing metta towards the 4 royal families of Nagas. And in this story, the bodhisatta is reborn as a young Brahmin of Kasi. And he lived the life of an ascetic after quelling his passions and developing supernormal powers and attainments. And he built a hermitage at the bend of the Ganges near the foot of the Himalaya. So we know just by hearing that that's where there are Nagas. And that's where he stayed with his band of ascetics. And one of the troubles that they had was by the Ganges bank, there were Nagas that caused mischief to the ascetics. And so when they took it to the bodhisatta, he gave them a teaching, basically saying that if you cultivated loving kindness to the 4 royal families of the Nagas, then they would not harm you, they would not bite you. So he had these verses which went, I have loving kindness towards the Virupakas, towards the Erapattas I have loving kindness. I have loving kindness towards the Chabbyaputtas and towards the Kanha Gautamas. And then he went on to say, creatures all beneath the sun, 2 feet, 4 feet, more or none. I have loving kindness to all these creatures. Creatures all, 2 feet or 4, you with none and you with more. Do not hurt me, I implore. And then his final verse was, all the creatures that have birth, breathe and move upon the earth, may you be happy, one and all, may you never into mischief fall. And so this was one of the strong teachings that he gave, and it's something that we are encouraged to do even now, because as we know, loving kindness is a very powerful thing. And by not wishing harm on anyone else, then harm doesn't necessarily befall you. We can end our session here. Let's share the merit with all sentient beings. May all beings be happy and well. May all beings be free from suffering. Blessings of the Triple Gem. Wishing you well, young friends. Teruan Saranai.